Hi everyone, welcome to our Hayes Technology Live event. In this series, we'll be exploring the career stories behind the founders of some of the world's most exciting emerging tech companies. My name is David Burke. I'm the director here for Hayes Technology in Ireland. I'm going to be hosting today's session, and today we're joined by John Roberts. So John is the CEO and co-founder of Blockaviation. Blockaviation has developed the world's first global registry for aircraft records. So John is here today to discuss the story behind his career and talk a little bit about the company and his experience as a tech founder. So we're currently live on LinkedIn and Twitter. If you've any questions for John, just pop them in the comments. We'll get to them at the end. Going to run about 30 minutes for a chat with John and hope to give about 15, 20 minutes for questions as required at the end. So please do let us know if you've anything specific you'd like John to answer. So John, firstly, welcome to the session. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks a million, Dave. Good to see you. Great
to
be here.
So yeah, I guess just jump into it, and to begin with, before we get on to Blockaviation, let's maybe arrive there. It'd be great if you could just tell us about yourself, who you are, where you came from, your story up to Blockaviation.
Yeah, look, it's a bit of a mixed bag. I kind of bit of a jack of all trades, really. I like my first job was in Taiwan, which was great, an amazing experience. So I started out in a lab with about 80 engineers working, building servers, and actually in the lab there they had the original sort of Netflix thing. This is back in 1995, video on demand lab. So it was a really interesting place to work. Great people, but they had a lovely view of the world. They viewed the world completely globally. So everything in Taipei, or in China, I suppose, is EMEA, Asia Pacific, and America. You know, they're looking at the big markets. It was a great place to get a start. I was fortunate to become a product manager when product management was quite a new profession back in 1996, I think it was. So I was a European product manager with Acer computers in Europe. Came back to Ireland, did a few different things. I ended up going back to Acer when Gianfranco Lanci took over. He was this guy was an absolute genius of a man. He came from Texas Instruments, and he brought that sort of compact, which in the PC and server industry at the time was a mentality. Very cutting edge. So he made Acer the biggest computer company in the world. It was brilliant to be there, sort of on his coattails, and I was reporting directly to him. So it was brilliant. Great experience.
But that's great exposure for a young guy, right? And you know, first job and that international exposure. Do you think? I mean, I assume you consider yourself fortunate to have had those early experiences. But do you think that kind of global view of the world, exposure to that early on, has had an impact in the longer term?
Oh, without doubt, Dave. I mean, there was a great program back when I was leaving college. Now, at the time, I had no intention of getting a job. I was going to get a motorbike and come back from Australia back to Dublin on a motorbike. But my co-rider, let's say, let me down, so I ended up on having to get a job. But I applied to the overseas graduate program from FOSS. They were putting people out in Asia.
Wow.
So it was a really, really brilliant program. And unfortunately, you know, they when the economy started to boom here, they started closing these things down because they felt we needed graduates in Ireland. And I really think it was very short-sighted. I mean, really putting people out in these places and giving them that sort of perspective is very, very valuable, I think. So I was really lucky, really, really lucky.
And the objective there was to get people out so they come back and bring that knowledge back, right? I guess from a FOSS perspective.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, the industrial policy at the time was very much bringing in foreign investment, so foreign direct investment. So we were put out there to bring these jobs, to bring these companies back to Ireland. So there was a load of Asian, Chinese, Taiwanese, Singaporean, Japanese companies who set up in Ireland because of the graduates that went out there. So that was our objective there as well, of course, because Ireland was always strong in the PC. We had Dell, we had Gateway, we had Compaq, all based here. So that was the objective.
Good. So I know from speaking before, you got this fantastic job in Taiwan, but you hated it, right?
I hated it. Yeah, look, it wasn't for me. I knew within 3 hours that it just wasn't for me. I love working. I love business. I love every minute of it, and I believe in filling every minute of the day so that you're pretty much, as a friend of mine says, always on when you're working. And big companies are just inefficient. For my first few hours, I sat at the desk in my little pod with a computer, which was pretty cool at the time. And I didn't know how to use the computer, but I was playing solitaire on it. So boss came over, gave me a lecture in front of the whole department. And I was there, what is your problem? Like, I've got no work to do. I'm just off the plane. So I was there, look, I don't need all that politics and nonsense. Much better to be busy, to be doing stuff. And if you're working for yourself, you can busy yourself. It's and if you're not busy, it's a problem. So
yeah, there's a couple of things to unpack there, and I'll come back to them later because I think they'll tie in nicely. But so you're back in Ireland. Did you from that experience, did you know you wanted to work for yourself, or you just knew you didn't want to do that?
Look, Gianfranco, the guy I worked for, was absolutely brilliant, and but it was very much a philosophy of, there's the business, go run it. You got problems, come to me. Otherwise, get on. You were left to your own devices, and you could create, you could do stuff. So my daughter was starting school when I left Acer. I was working down in Switzerland. We wanted to move back up, and I wanted my daughter to complete her education here in Ireland. Yeah. So I knew I was going to have to start a business, because very difficult to find that sort of environment. As I said, I was very, very fortunate. So I tried a lot of different things, a lot of crazy things. I couldn't actually, some of the things I couldn't say here publicly. But eventually, look, I set up, I got a restaurant business going. So got a chain of restaurants going in town in the middle of the crisis. So it was a pretty cool project. I took a little out of examinership, fixed it up, and then we expanded to, it was Joe Burger out in our Mines, to Crackbird. Okay. Skinflint, and we set up Bear then with Jamie Heaslip, and got a very good business up and running, and it was really enjoyable. It was lovely being in town. It was lovely getting home to kids, put my kids to bed every evening. I used to travel a lot, so it was a decision that I made, that I wanted to be there every evening to see them. So, and did
you bring a technology component to that business?
Yeah. Look, it's like any business. It's a bit of a scramble at the start. I knew one restaurant is not a business, really, with all respect to restaurateurs. So I knew we had to scale it pretty quickly. And then in 2012, I think I had 5 restaurants. And restaurants are really difficult to manage, a bit like airlines, slow moving parts. So basically, I partnered with the company on Synergy Suite, and we were the guinea pig for them to develop a cloud-based ERP system to run all the processes. Attendance, rostering, stock, ordering, hygiene controls, everything on the cloud, which was ideal, because I could go to Italy in the summer with my kids and watch the business from the laptop, keep an eye on it, and watch it all work. And it worked really well. It was a great business, great people, great team. Really enjoyable.
So to kind of move on to where we are today, and just talk a little bit about Blockaviation, because clearly that's all consuming, I guess, right now. How did that begin? How did that come about? You're a co-founder of the business. We started in 2018. So where did the idea for that come from?
Well, I sold my previous business 2017, and I went on holidays to America, and I just read a lot of books when I was on holidays, and the technology I was very interested in, fascinated by. My brother was as well. He's got an interesting sort of story. So we spent a lot of time kicking these ideas around, and then I read, when I was on holidays, I read Ireland's Aviator, which is Tony Ryan's book, which I recommend everybody to read. He's the godfather of business here in Ireland. Pretty much all the big businesses have come out of that sort of stable. So from that, it was clear there's a cluster of really competent, world-class people in Ireland in the aviation tech space, and this technology was clearly applicable in that space. So look, I was there. Okay, cool. This is a good idea. Went out to meetups and met my co-founder Simon at the meetups, and these were blockchain meetups that were going around Dublin at the time. So it was got to meet lots of people and see what was happening in the sector. And myself and Simon got together for a coffee, and we just explained to him, about the value of an aircraft. It's in all of the documentation, and there's definitely an opportunity here from what I'd seen. And Simon, is a young buck from Sligo, and he went away and he thought about it, and he came back and he just sent me a lovely LinkedIn message, just really polite, also really switched on, and he realized, this is a sector that's underserved technically. So so we decided we'd join forces, and so we did.
Like it's an interesting technology, and I think a lot of stuff that comes out, with a lot of hype, oftentimes it's technology looking for a problem. But I think, the beauty of blockchain and the practicality of it, the way it lends itself to, to a myriad of real world problems. So for people who don't know that, for the problem that you're addressing, in your own words is, well, I mean, I know, why don't you tell us, what is the problem that you're addressing here?
The problem that we're addressing, and the angle that we're coming from, is looking at the residual value of the aircraft. And we're creating Guarded Aero. And Guarded Aero is the Global Aircraft Records Registry. And the idea of this is that it's a new way to document and demonstrate airworthiness compliance. And because those documents are the value of the aircraft, being able to demonstrate that digitally is also able to demonstrate the value of the aircraft. So it's an exciting sort of combination.
And like you mentioned that, we've got a very mature and kind of, world leading industry here, particularly in the leasing space. I mean, that was a factor clearly in your decision to apply it to, to this domain. So, we'll come on to the backing and support and the ecosystem that needs to be around a founder to make that work in a second. But before that, why did you choose to go down the founder route, rather than, work your way up? And do you think, is kind of a double question, do you think it's important, if anyone has an idea and, wants to make it a reality and make it into a business, should they get experience in a startup, or can they just, jump straight in?
Why? Look, I did both. So I did the corporate thing, and I did quite well in that, and I was fortunate, and I learned an awful lot from that. So and as I said, I think it's about the environment, and it's about what makes you tick. And for me, I just like to be really, really busy all the time. I don't like downtime, and I don't like politics, and I don't like any of that nonsense. I love problems, business problems, and trying to sort those. With regard to other people starting out in startups, I'd be a bit wary about that. I'm not as, I'm a bit grayer, as you can see. So, there's a lot of buzz about startups and this being cool and this and that and the other. I think startups are chaos. Largely, I think this has been, we've tried to keep it, to manage the chaos, but it is very, very difficult. It's a difficult environment, and there's an awful lot to be said for companies and understanding how companies work. Yeah. The importance of getting a company work. So I think there's something to be said for both. I think you'd have to be lucky to get into a good startup where you'd learn a lot. But and even then, it's really about your own feeling and your own experience of it. As long as you're challenged and you're busy and you're enjoying, you love coming into work every day, either one's a good option.
So I've noticed, like, you've mentioned business the whole time. It's business, business, business. You're kind of not leaning on the technology. Is that an important, if we're, if there's anyone on here today who has an idea and they're, a technologist at heart, I mean, that's an important component, right? You need to understand that you're in business. So, we'll talk about how you secure investment and the people that you need around you, but do you need to have your business hat on first and foremost? I mean, is that the most important thing?
Yeah, I mean, look, you need a problem, you need an idea of a solution, and then it's like one of our advisors, Keith Bears, he has this picture of just starting a business is like jumping off a cliff and building an aircraft as you plummet towards the earth. So, and if you have a business head, it helps. Building that aircraft is a bit easier. So, I mean, you won't get beyond the first base unless you can sum the business model. And your business model is definitely wrong at the start. No matter what you do, you're not going to have all the answers at the start, but you've got to develop thesis, and you've got to promote those theses. And look, it's a school of hard knocks, because you're going around knocking on doors, a lot of cold shoulders, as myself used to say, a lot of rejection, a lot of people saying, no, it's too early, it's too early. You got to keep going. And the more you do it, you do get to and then the process is bringing people in, really. So myself and Simon, we did Techstars in January 2019, the spring of 2019. And through that, we managed to build up our board of advisors who opened doors for us, people. And we managed to find Carl, our third co-founder. And Carl is an aircraft engineer, so he actually knows the ins and outs of an aircraft. But he also, it helps, it helps. Other than a bluffer like me going around the place. So, but Carl also, he built the first digital records platform. Worked at a store, and he sold that he merged it into Airdata and then sold it on to Boeing. And then, even when he was in Boeing, he was working on developing the next generation, pretty much what we're working on now, which is the standards for transferring these records. So himself and a guy called Anton Towns down in GCAS really pushed that in the industry. So not sure what the question was now, Dave. Jeez, don't let me wrap it on too much. Stop me.
Fine. We'll keep it on track. I guess there's a couple of things in there.
Just to finish it. So Carl has come in and he's really focused our approach to this, and he's also brought people on board. Like, having Carl has given us people confidence to join us with expertise in aviation. So it's all a sort of an incremental process. And as I said, I can't remember what the question was now, but anyway.
No, it's fine. It was just the business aspect of having your business brain on. I guess it ties back into funding as well, which is often the first real stumbling block that people are faced with. They have an idea, they've got a couple of people involved, they can see the product, but having that commercial plan, having that really laser sharp, particularly in the climate that we've just gone through, and startup funding was way down, during the pandemic, seems to be back on the rise, which is great. How did you go about securing investment, and what are the things in terms of advice for people before you start to make those calls and make those pitches? What do you have to have laser sharp?
What do you have to have laser sharp? You know what? I think it's like what's that guy who does the podcast? He says about your product, you're not embarrassed about your first product. When you release it, you're too late. And I think pretty much with the business plan as well, it is going to be embarrassing. It is cringeworthy, but you need to have a plan, and you need to be able to defend the plan to the best that you can and get out and promote it. And the more you do that, and the more people that you get in front of, you will find the answers. But it is very much an incremental, evolutive, is that a word? Evolutive process. So look, it just takes time, and you just have to get out there and keep pushing. We got off to a really great start when we came up with the idea, and we did our first pitch at an accelerator. We had an investor ready to throw a load of money at us, and that wouldn't have been the right thing for us to do, to take that money at the time. We would have had, it was still a challenge to close the rest of the round out, but we needed to be lean for a while. We needed the sort of the process of building our network and honing the ideas that we were developing, so that we had the right answers. And I think it's taken us a bit, but I think we're pretty much there now. We're things going really well now, so we're very fortunate.
And do you think you mentioned what's the Barclays program again? Forgot the name.
Techstars.
Yeah, Techstars. So it clearly, the programs help with putting structure and process on building the formal business. But is the real value in that the access to people and support that you wouldn't ordinarily give? Like, would you advise people to seek out places on these programs, as a way of finding their path?
Absolutely. I mean, NDRC are running their program at the moment. Every startup in Ireland should be applying for that. Getting access to people, and when I talk about people, I mean 360. You need mentors, you need peers, you need people to work with you. And the more access you can get to people who've been there and done that, and we'll be honest with you, they'll tell you, and Techstars is a mentorship-oriented program. So it's not startup school. I mean, it's two things. It's a mentorship-oriented program, and it is a psychological counseling program, because when you go out to start a business, it's just so difficult. It's so hard. And there's a guy there, Chris Adelsbach, and he actually was brilliant how he was able to describe the journey. And all of those stories kind of stick in your mind, and they keep you going in the really dark times. So
good. And you were lucky enough to get some really, very relevant, very influential, high quality people on your board, as advisors. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about, did you make that happen? Should as part of this process, should people be identifying, people who can really help, and should they aim high and just go for it? Could you tell us the story of how that came about for you?
Yeah, well, look, when we went into Techstars, it was our objective was to build a board. That's what we wanted to do. That was, we had, only a couple of objectives, and that was really the key thing for us. And I think everybody should do that. I think it's very, very worthwhile. It's not a huge demand on people's time to organize a quarterly meeting for an hour and a half. You get them to sit around the table. The meetings themselves, you are sort of going through the motions somewhat, but what you do have is you got people on the end of a phone that you can check with, you can talk to, and as I said, you need people to talk to, because it's very lonely, and it's a very tough journey. So so I think it's definitely worthwhile. Absolutely, yeah.
And the right people can make the right introductions and just help really accelerate, or just give you a chance to be in front of people to tell your story, right?
Yeah, well, look, Dermot Mannion was the ex-CEO of Aer Lingus and COO of Emirates. He introduced us to Carl. Well, Carl we've been stalking for years, and he was managing to avoid eye contact. Like Declan Ryan has opened doors with all over the industry. He's introduced us to all the key people that we really need to be talking to. Keith Baer has introduced us to people outside of aviation, and it's allowed us to look at implementation. So he's at Cambridge University Centre for Alternative Finance, and he's a global blockchain sort of expert. So he can see all of the live networks, so he's a really key influential guy to have sitting with us, and he doesn't hold his punches. He's very, very astute and very clear with his advice. And then Pete last year sat in with myself, Carl, and Simon every week, kept working through stuff all the time. And sometimes you don't see the benefit of that, but I think the benefits are immeasurable over time. So absolutely, really, really valuable for us.
And just kind of following on from what you said there, is it important to not necessarily have a thick skin, but to be able to hear criticism of the thing that you're most passionate about?
I don't have a thick skin. I'm a disaster. So I get very emotional about everything. So is it important to have a thick skin? It's important, I think, to be boundaried about things, and to realize business is business, and not to take it personally. And it depends on your own psychological constitution, I suppose. But a thick skin. I think you have to be willing to put yourself out there. If you don't do that, if you're not willing to put yourself out there, it's not going to work. It's pretty much end of story. You're going to have to look foolish, and you're going to have to say foolish things. But as long as you're learning, it's not a problem.
Okay. So just to come back to you then, so in terms of separate from the company, you as a founder, as a person, what are your personal objectives, for the next period? What is it that you want to learn about yourself, and do you set yourself some personal targets as well as just helping the business get where it needs to go?
Look, I think we're coming into another phase now. The business is really starting to settle down, and so personally, we're always developing, and I'm hoping to develop a sort of a calmer approach to things, I guess. Look, I've got lots of personal objectives, but But then for the business itself, I think we've got a clear sort of a 5-year plan, what we want to do, 3-year and a 5-year plan. And then after that is really when things start to take off and get really exciting. So, whether I'll be here for that or not, or, I get the heave-ho, we'll see.
I'm sure they can find something for you to do in the background. So you mentioned you don't need to be calm, you don't need a thick skin, you don't, all the things that you don't need. But on a serious note, what are the key technical or soft skills that you think a founder for an early stage tech company need to
have? Okay, well, look, I think you have to have a problem, and you have to be able to envisage a solution for it. So you need that level of technical, kind of hybrid technical skills, I would say. I've grown up in the tech industry. I've studied technology, so you have to be able to do that. And then you've got to understand value and what value is, and marketing actually. So a lot of people think marketing is flashy logos and websites, but it's not. Marketing is about, it's on the balance sheet. It's equity, and you generate equity through your marketing activities and what you do. And then the key, the element, like especially for a business like us, it's about the team. It's about the people that are in the company. Like we've got 5 decades now of aircraft records experience in the company. We've got Hayes helped us to get, we've got like, I don't know how many master's degrees we've got in the company, 6 master's degrees in data science, machine learning, all highly, highly competent people, and get those guys to gel and to work as a team that's aligned to business objectives, aligned to that business. That's the key challenge. Again, I've forgotten what the question was. Sorry, Dave, I'll just wrap it up.
It's fine. It's the traits the founder needs. I think you've covered it off. Yeah. Well, one thing I would like to explore really briefly. So you've mentioned there, you've got decades of experience, but essentially, oftentimes having the problem you want to solve through. Yeah, sorry, I dropped out there. The beauty of home networks. So having a problem and having a clear problem to solve often means that you're disrupting very traditional industries, and I'm really coming with a disruptive message, positive disruption to a customer base. What's your experience been of that, and any advice you could give in how you positively challenge people who are probably quite proud of the way their industry works at the moment?
Well, look, I think we're probably the case study in that. So we're going to aviation, which is a phenomenal industry. If you look at what they do, getting these metal tubes up into the air, Ryanair are turning in 25 minutes and generating 21% margin off that. And again, talking about Irish competence in this industry, generating profit, margins of that level, and then doing it all safely. Ryanair, I think it's the only time we've seen a Ryanair aircraft in the news this week. So they're doing all of this, and they've got this incredible system to document absolutely everything that happens with these assets, and they're extremely proud of it. So, I don't think we're upstarts. I think our approach is very much to come in and to respect what's there. We want to add a solution which adds value to that existing infrastructure, and we think, create a platform for the next generation of. So now you are met with a lot of skepticism, and especially, when we started out, you're kind of a bit of a hammer and a nail going around promoting a technology. With time, we've become better at understanding and articulating the problem and focusing on that. So, yeah.
So look, you've shared loads there. Just to, not to repeat yourself, but if you were going to give your top 2 tips, someone has an idea, they want to turn to business. What are the 2 things they need to do? First of all, leave aside that they need to, let's assume they have a good problem to solve. They have a solid idea. What's next?
Look, very simply, I say do it. There's only one way, and if you're doing it, trust your feelings all the way. Keep going until your feeling is telling you, no, this is the end of the road. And the second thing is people, like I said earlier, make sure you've got good people around you. So, and that's 360. Mentors, peers, people working in the team, all around, because that's what's going to make it happen for you. If you can do that, especially if you've already got the problem and an idea of a solution, you'll get there.
Cool. Okay, I think we're going to take some questions. So James, if you want to maybe pop something up there, and we'll see if people have anything that they'd like to ask you directly. So question 1, what are your key values both as an individual and as a company?
Great question. Yeah. I mean, we've touched on the values for the company, and it's something that's really important to set out at the outset. We've had a sort of brief discussion. I think, look, the two things really: curiosity. So being curious. So continually asking questions, not being afraid to look foolish. I look foolish a lot, so I don't have a problem with that. So, and I think that's a good thing. Being curious, and then being candid. Being able to. The great thing about business is you can be candid because it's business. It's just business. So you can ask direct questions. You can get direct criticism. It's all in good spirit, in good nature. So I think they're probably the key values: curiosity and being candid.
Yeah, I mean, I think couldn't agree more. I think and having a natural or innate curiosity about things can be the starting point for anything. I think in a lot of instances, yeah.
It's what I said to my kids. My kids. I just said, look, guys, since they've been, able to speak, I said, look, if you get up every day and learn one new thing every day, you have a great life. It's a great life if you're learning something new every day. So
absolutely.
Curious.
Couldn't agree more. Next question. So what motivates you in your day-to-day work?
Well, in day-to-day work, I just love the sort of the creative process. I love how it all works. Sometimes a lot of it's invisible, and you don't know. You don't necessarily know what you're doing is going to amount to anything. But when you look back and you go, wow, okay, yeah, that was cool. We went and we did that, and now we're here. So I suppose, just that every day, getting up and learning. It's learning. It's the same answer. Sorry, I'm not answering all the questions with the same answer, but learn something new every day and just feeling as if things are progressing. I just love that sort of sense of progress. It's very exciting.
Do you think that's an important point? I think, especially in an early stage business, because it's so all consuming and intense. It can be, do you specifically make time to reflect on how far you've come, or I guess you would agree that it is important, right, to just take your head up, take a breath, and look back and say, okay, we've still got a lot to do. Some of it we don't know how to do yet, but from where we were 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, 2 years ago, let's recognize the progress we're making.
So look, this is my moleskin, my diary. So we get one for everybody in the company at Christmas time, and every year at close to New Year's Eve, I'll sit down and I'll take a review of the year and go, right, show me my diary from last year. What did I want to do? What did I do? Where are the gaps? Absolutely. Reflecting is I'm a bit older than the usual fuzzy tech startup guy. So reflecting is absolutely essential. Without taking the time to reflect and to set out objectives and then measure yourself against those objectives, I think it's. Well, I don't know how to do a business any other way, to be honest. It's the only way I know how to do it. So I'm sure there's other people who've got more fluid ways of doing it. I'm a little bit structured.
Well, I'm sure someone's going to come up with a digital solution for that diary. I'd expect a call on that one. Next question. So final question. Okay, what do you enjoy most about running your own business?
Enjoy most about running your own business. I suppose it's just the sense that there's a team and there's people that are all coming and working together on a communal sort of objective or set of objectives, and it's a nice social experience. And you can create something off that, which I think you can, especially the way technology is developing these days. There's so many opportunities out there. There's so many things you can do, and so many ways to skin a cat. It's really, I suppose, I feed off that. I feed off the energy of people, and at times, it's not always perfect, and I'm certainly not perfect, but I just get a great buzz off that, a great sort of sense of that. And I think if everybody's coming to work doing that, it looks after itself. So the business will take care of itself. It always does. So,
and I suppose there's more challenges to come, right? Because I mean, I've worked with early stage businesses who've grown to be quite large over the years. In the 20 odd years nearly I've been involved in this. And at every stage, there's another stage of growth with new problems, and as you get bigger, putting more processes where perhaps, there was less. So that will never end, right? It's just, there's always going to be another thing to do and another, level to evolve to.
I love it. Yeah, exactly. It's great. That's what you get out of bed for every day, for problems. There's no problems, people. No problems, no job for me.
Good. So we have one more question here. What's been your toughest challenge running your own business?
Toughest challenge running your own business. I mean, look, raising investment is really, really challenging. There's a lot of buzzy talk about investment, and I've raised this and I've raised that. You don't see all the work that goes on behind that over the years, and you're reading press releases. It's really, really tough to raise investment, and not just get investment, because money, will get you so far. You need the right investors, and we're really fortunate to get probably the best possible investors we could hope for at the start, and that's just lent more gravitas and credence to what we're doing. So I think, investment's probably the most challenging thing, and you're doing it from, you've never done it before. Like my previous business, I put my own money into it, and I grew it out of cash flow, which is a completely different challenge to this. So I think, investment's definitely the toughest thing.
And I think, you where you were lucky enough to be able to draw on past experiences in different businesses, and you had that kind of prior commercial experience. For someone who's perhaps a little earlier in their career, who's doing this for the first time and doesn't have that experience to draw on, I think a kind of an important point you mentioned there is not just taking the first money that's available to you. That make sure it's the right people behind that, and you're going to get the support and the breathing room to achieve what you want to achieve, right?
Yeah, as I said, we were offered money, and you need to be really careful with people's money. And in the end of the day, it's their inheritance, and you don't want to lose it. It's a really serious thing. This buzzy, I keep saying buzzy because I find the startup buzzy thing a bit annoying. If you're taking people's money, you want to make sure you're putting it to good use. You're getting the maximum bang for the buck, and you're doing the best you possibly can with it.
Yeah, for sure.
And not, because you could take money early, could be the wrong person. You better to have the right people around the table with you, but also you can burn it very quickly, and then you're pretty much in debt to somebody. I mean, no matter, I know they're taking a risk with their money, but still, it's not nice to feel as if you're burning through people's money and you're not getting the output that you'd like out of it.
So not to finish on that, let's finish on a positive. Very last question. What is what's your proudest moment in this chapter? What's the proudest thing that you've achieved with this particular business in your view?
Proudest moment with Blockaviation. It's going to happen over the next year. That's all ahead of us, Dave.
Okay.
I'm really proud of everything we've done.
Yeah.
From start to finish, working with Simon, I had a very difficult personal few years, and Simon's carried me, and then we got Carl on board. Everybody working salary free, trying to figure out this problem. Then we got guys coming working voluntarily for us, and then they've come on board. Investors trusting us. We've had so many things that I'm proud of. It'd be very difficult to pick one thing. I'm really proud.
And I think the the importance of people around you who are bought into the same idea, that's come through as a recurring theme. I mean, you can't overstate that, right? It's nobody can do this on their own.
Absolutely not. No, not. I mean, I know we live in a sort of a messianic culture where we like to glorify entrepreneurs. You know, I have a problem with that. I think it's all about the team. It's all about the people that you're working with.
No, I couldn't agree more. Well, look, thanks so much for that. That was great. Thanks for sharing it. You know, it's great that you're so candid, and I think you're right. I think there's a culture around the startup ecosystem which has many positives, but sometimes a certain lens is applied to it that, you know, that it isn't necessarily helpful for people looking to get into this for the first time. The reality isn't always what people think. So thanks so much for that. So that brings us to the end of the session today. Hopefully you found it interesting. We will post a recording, of course, and give you some information on where you can find all that. If you have any questions for John or would like to connect with him, you can reach out to him. You can find him on LinkedIn. So yeah, with that, look, we'd like to thank you again for taking your time today, and thanks, John, for sharing, and we will see you again in the future. Thanks.
Good man, Dave. Thanks.